Not to dispel the magic, but video games are, generally speaking, works of fiction. Giving developers the opportunity to flex their creative muscles usually makes for a more immersive experience for the player. Often, developers take that sense of creative freedom and run with it, leading to a veritable bounty of wonders being readily accessible at the mere push of a button. A big part of achieving the immersion we know and love is populating games with countless items. Many of these are pretty mundane and purely cosmetic, but there are many examples of video game items that are just the opposite. And as anyone who's ever stumbled into the dark side of internet fanfiction will tell you, imagination can sometimes get a little weird. Whatever you need, video games' cross-section of fantasy and function provides a healthy crop of truly bizarre items that serve a very specific function. Strap on your rainbow-fueled gravity packs because I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 weirdest video game items that actually have a purpose. Number 10. Groovitron Glove, Ratchet & Clank. The Ratchet & Clank franchise is positively packed with unique gadgets and weapons, many of which would probably warrant mentioning in this list. However, there is one that stands out above the rest for how utterly bizarre it is: the Groovitron Glove. We've all been there, surrounded by a horde of hostile aliens, our lives hanging in the balance, thinking, if only these creatures would stop and dance. Enter the Groovitron Glove, a weapon that allows you to throw disco balls and incapacitate enemies by making them get their groove on. The Groovitron has an obvious purpose. It stops enemies in their tracks, forcing them to abandon their desire to turn Ratchet into a Lombax skin rug, allowing the player enough time to swiftly dispatch them. However, this is also what makes the Groovitron so strange. It's technically non-lethal, leaving players free to do away with the hostile aliens on their own schedule. Still, it does imply that these enemies could theoretically dance themselves to death, although on the other hand, that's arguably a kinder fate than the one waiting for them at the end of Ratchet's trusty wrench. No matter how effective you might consider the Groovitron to be as a weapon, it certainly is a strange but useful tool for the aspiring Galactic Ranger to possess. Number 9. Wall Meat, Castlevania. In a franchise about a vampire hunter exploring Count Dracula's castle, you'd probably expect there to be all manner of curious artifacts lurking in Castlevania's shadowy corners. While you wouldn't necessarily be wrong, the weirdest item in the Castlevania franchise is actually something that's pretty mundane, which is kept in a rather unorthodox place. When vampire hunting takes its toll on Simon Belmont and his health starts to run low, he can top it up by attacking Castlevania's walls, smashing them open and finding delicious cooked chicken. Now, eating meat might be a pretty standard practice on its own, especially by video game standards, but every facet of Castlevania's wall meat is just so incredibly wrong. The implication is that Count Dracula has spent his years of immortality roasting entire chickens, putting them inside the walls, and then bricking them away. Exactly why he would do this is perhaps Castlevania's biggest mystery. And not only does it provide the player with a much-needed pick-me-up, but it also makes Dracula seem all the more evil. Yes, the blood-sucking is pretty horrifying, but the thought that he's living inside walls lined with festering roasted meats, the smell alone must be unbearable. Number 8. Gummy Blocks, Kingdom Hearts. The Kingdom Hearts franchise may well exist as an answer to the question, what would happen if Final Fantasy met Disney, and that goes a long way towards explaining some of its more unique elements. As the entire franchise was built around the idea of connecting and traveling across multiple different fantasy worlds, Sora, Donald, and Goofy's adventures needed to be rationalized with a bit of clever writing. And that is where Kingdom Hearts Gummy Blocks come in. Made of an entirely undefined substance and used to build interdimensional spaceships, Gummy Blocks essentially serve as an explanation for how Sora is able to visit so many colourful locales. The Gummy is a bizarre and unexpected mystery that Kingdom Hearts doesn't deign to illuminate. Their game-related purpose is made fairly clear, but what makes them so strange is how vague all the other details are. Despite sounding as though they'd rot Sora's teeth faster than the speed of light, gummies are mostly obtained during Kingdom Hearts' tonally dissonant space missions. They're also randomly for sale in certain shops around the franchise's many worlds, making gummy blocks as mysterious as they are useful. Exactly where they come from and what they're made of isn't clear, but without them, Sora would float away into the endless chasm of space, so in that sense, they certainly serve their purpose. They also sound delicious. Number 7. Dagger of Time, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Be honest, who hasn't wished for the ability to control time? To those with a healthy imagination, time manipulation would come with endless possibilities, and when combined with some totally sweet parkour skills, might just make you a Prince of Persia. 2003 saw the Prince of Persia franchise rebooted with Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, and with it came the introduction of the imaginatively named Dagger of Time. Unsurprisingly, the Dagger of Time has the power to, you guessed it, control time using magical sand. You might not have guessed the sand bit, but you get the point. The same magic sand has also created monsters, just to make sure that the dagger part of the item gets some use too. Though it may not be particularly strange in the context of the game itself, the part hourglass, part knife dagger of time is a pretty abstract concept when you really think about it. Keeping sand inside one's weapon isn't really standard behavior either, making the item more than a little bizarre in a conceptual sense. However, it certainly proves useful to the titular prince. Without it, he'd never have managed to navigate the otherwise impossible series of traps and platforming puzzles he encounters on his journey. All in all, the magic sand knife does come in pretty handy. Number 6. Mr. Toots, Red Faction Armageddon. Mr. Toots, the rainbow-blasting unicorn, is one of the most notorious elements of 2011's Red Faction Armageddon. But no matter how many times he makes an appearance, the impression he leaves remains untarnished. As the game consists of a pretty serious story regarding an underground mining complex on Mars, the inclusion of Mr. Toots serves as a pretty big tonal departure. This makes him seem even stranger than he already would have been. After beating the game, players are able to make use of Mr. Toots' highly destructive backside. Equipped just like any of the game's standard weapons, Mr. Toots can be used to shoot lethal rainbow beams at enemies and the game environment. Wait, where's the trigger on this? Oh my god, are they using his... Oh no, Mr. Toots! Red Faction Armageddon offers little to no information on Mr. Toots' backstory, so exactly how he came to be in an underground Martian mining facility is really anyone's guess. However, regardless of how utterly baffling his presence in the game may be, he's certainly useful, as the force released from his lower intestine can level small structures and explode enemies into a puff of rainbows and butterflies. He's cute, he's cuddly, and his digestive tract is capable of producing lethal force. Not unlike me after a Domino's. Number 5. Mollusk Launcher, Saints Row the Third. For years, the Saints Row series has reveled in pushing boundaries by including as much mayhem as possible, taking a third-person action sandbox and delighting in making it as vulgar as possible. Saints Row the Third combined controversy and chaos in equal measure. One of the game's best, or worst, depending on who you ask, features is the inclusion of items and set pieces clearly designed to be as weird and wonderful as possible. Perhaps the strangest of these is the Mollusk Launcher, a weapon that fires mind-controlling octopuses capable of turning hostile NPCs into allies. And hey, before you go running into the comments, octopuses are technically mollusks apparently. Who knew? The perks of being able to alter the will of your enemies really do speak for themselves, making the Mollusk Launcher a handy addition to the arsenal of Steelport's career criminal. Useful though it may be, it's still an incredibly strange weapon, even by Saints Row's standards. Number 4. Donor Dog Brain, Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas, a game that combines the tarnished glitz of apocalyptic Las Vegas with the desolation of the irradiated Mojave. Close your eyes and you can practically taste the Nuka-Cola as you walk along with a big iron on your hip and a A dog brain in your pocket? What? The Fallout series offers a fair few strange surprises, but is there anything more off-putting than carting around a donor dog brain during the Nothing But a Hound Dog quest? Maybe, but the fact that it's more than just a bizarre backpack filler makes it all the more unpleasant, even though it's entirely necessary. The quest in question is undertaken by the player in order to save Rex the Cyberhound's life and recruit him as a companion. Carrying the brain is pretty odd, but as the only alternative is to not recruit him at all, it's safe to say that every single New Vegas player with a heart resign themselves to harvesting the organ and delivering it to Rex's owner, the King. It may have gathered a little Mojave dust on the way, but without it, how is Rex gonna know that he is in fact a very good boy? Number 3. Fairy Bottles, The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda games arguably make up one of the most iconic franchises in all of gaming. The combination of fantasy, action, and adventure is made all the richer for the series' wealth of lore and the depth of its world. There's so much that makes The Legend of Zelda unique, but that also means that every now and then, things get a little weird. Though the item may be a staple of the franchise, the fairy bottles that protagonist Link uses to heal himself should be considered strange at best. They've been around for enough time to no longer warrant too much thought, but on closer examination, they seem to prove Link's capacity for cruelty. In The Legend of Zelda's Hyrule, fairies are sentient beings, so Link is really imprisoning tiny people just to exploit them for their abilities. Okay, the fairies don't seem to mind all that much, and Link does set them free once they've served their purpose, but surely the exploitation of fairies' magical powers should be considered a huge ethical issue. The fact that Link doesn't seem too concerned makes it even stranger, as does the idea that he's directly responsible for the unfair imprisonment of countless fairies. If nothing else, it certainly taints his heroic image a bit, doesn't it? Number 2. Pheromone Arrow, Gal Gun. It's hard to separate all of the elements of a game like Gal Gun, or Gal Asterisk Gun if you want to get stylized about this, into what should be considered normal and what should be considered totally insane. With the baseline skewed so heavily towards strangeness, it's easy enough to dismiss the game's pheromone arrows as more of the same, but they really are pretty baffling. Playing as a young man shot full of Cupid's arrows, Gal Gun sees you tasked with warding off the advances of countless love-struck schoolgirls in order to find true love. How on earth does one go about doing this, you ask? Just get yourself a handful of pheromone arrows and you'll be all set to scare away the people attracted to you. Finally, God, I've had that issue for ages. How exactly such an arrow might work is not something Gal Gun explains, but it's probably safe to assume that pheromones play a part. This means that the arrows most definitely smell bad, making you seem suddenly unattractive to everyone around you. It's certainly a really weird concept, and though pheromone arrows might only be useful in the context of Gal Gun's story, they undeniably have a pretty clear purpose, no matter how odd they might seem. And number 1, Crystallized Demon Orbs, Devil May Cry. If you've never played Devil May Cry, just consider it Resident Evil's totally radical cousin. Following demon hunter Dante as he, hunts demons, the franchise makes use of fast-paced combat with lots of overly showy and impressive techniques. More of said techniques, plus other abilities, can be bought using Devil May Cry's official currency, multicolored demon orbs. Demon orbs sound like a pretty standard video game collectible by name, but it's the franchise's own explanation of their nature that makes them so odd. According to Devil May Cry, these differently colored orbs are made from different parts of demons' various essences. Red ones, for example, come from demons' blood. White orbs consist of demons' tears, and green contain crystallized fluids. Just no one tell me what the yellow orbs are, okay? I think I'd rather not know. Using orbs made of various crystallized bits of demon juice as currency is more than just weird, it's utterly disgusting. The way that each color is used for a different purpose somehow makes it worse, because it implies that Dante values each discarded bodily fluid differently. The orbs may be useful for all manner of things, but knowing this about their nature, there's no way we'll ever be using them again. I don't want to be scraping crusty demon bits out of my piggy bank. Thank you very much.